Hi everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a flip on this vintage cedar chest. As you can see, there's a lot of veneer damage mixed with a good bit of gouges, but the inside is in impeccable shape, so we're going to leave the inside alone and freshen it up. This chest is dated back to 1949 based on the serial numbers, so let's get into it. First, I started by removing all of the loose veneer. As you can see underneath, there's a lot of water damage which made it warp, so we needed to remove it. And since so much of it was already loose, I just decided to go ahead and remove the entire bottom base of the veneer. Because of the veneer being so loose, I'm just using my chisel tool and that's it. I don't necessarily have to use a hammer to bang into it because it's coming off fairly easy. After I finish removing, there is some deep gouges in here, but I will patch those later on and you won't even know the difference. Before moving on, I wanted to start by making some of my molds. I use resin to make my molds just because of their durability and I feel it's easy to work with. So here is the floral molds. I have one I picked up from Hobby Lobby and one is a redesign by Prima. This resin is very easy as it is only two parts, part A and part B, and you simply mix them together and that will make your resin. You absolutely want to make sure that you are pouring even amounts of each mixture, being sure to stir it until it's completely mixed together. Then you can begin pouring them into your molds. You have to make sure that you go extra slow with this, especially when you get into the more detailed molds because you can make one heck of a mess. With the quick casting resin which I'm showing here, you do have to work fairly quickly because it does harden very fast. That is a pro and a con at the same time. If you're not super familiar, I do suggest using the longer casting resin just so you have more work time. You'll see here by the time I finish pouring, it's already starting to cure. Back to the cedar chest, I am going and filling all of those gouges that I had showed you with Bondo. I like to use Bondo for its durability and it's very quick and easy to work with. Here's a quick shot of what I use. It's just two parts and you mix them together. Once I was finished with my Bondo, it was time to get my molds out. I make sure to loosen the entire mold before pulling them out just to reduce the risk of possibly damaging them and having to make even more. After I got all of these out, I went ahead and poured more resin to make more molds, and then I went back to sanding my Bondo. Here I used a 120 grit to remove the excess Bondo because I didn't want to damage it with too rough of a grit, but you also do not want to use a soft grit or you're going to be there for quite a while. And while I already had it on its back, I figured to go ahead and just scuff sand it while I was down there. Again, this is the 120 grit, and the reason I am using a bit of a lower grit is because it is glossy. And because we're painting this piece, I want to make sure that I have the best adhesion as possible. With cedar chest, it is hard to miss small little spots, so always be sure to open it up and get what's underneath the lip. I then went ahead and changed out my sanding blocks and used this foam abrasive to make sure I got all around this curve without damaging it. Afterwards, it was time to clean. This is just TSP mixed with some water, and then I wipe it back with a microfiber cloth, making sure that I get into all of those details. Of course, I repeated this process on the entire piece because again, you want a clean surface to adhere your primer to. Once you're finished cleaning, you want to make sure that you allow your piece plenty of time to fully dry before adhering any primer to it. Since I am doing molds on this piece, I like to put my molds on prior to priming, so here I am just trying to configure where I want my molds to sit before going ahead and gluing them down. This took me about 15 minutes per side just because I'm very precise, but this is what I went with. And this is just my personal preference. I like to use caulking to put my molds down and have them secured. They seem to last the longest for me versus a wood glue. I honestly think too it is more forgivable than wood glue because you can just wipe it back with a baby wipe and be done with it. I then just press it back into the spot I wanted, just a little bit of pressure, and then it's good to go to the next one. After all of my molds are secured, I put down a piece of wood along with a paint can just for some added weight while it's drying. I do allow 24 hours of drying time before applying primer. As you've seen on many other of my videos, my go-to primer is the bench shellac, and I apply it using a foam roller. No fancy method, just being sure to completely cover what I'm working on. I do try to prime in between my molds, but it doesn't get into the details as much as I would like, so I do opt for the spray can version of the bin primer. Super easy, gets in the details, and it's just what I need. The color I decided on is called Mothwing by Sherwin-Williams. It's a urethane trim enamel. I love this paint. It sprays beautifully, and because it is an enamel paint, I don't have to worry about top coating. This paint dries beautifully just after one coat. It dries to the touch within 2 hours, and you're able to recoat in 4 hours. After I wait the 4 hours, I do take a 400 grit block of sandpaper and just lightly scuff the surface to make sure I have no dirt stuck in my paint job. I used 2 full coats on this piece. Because the coverage is amazing with Sherwin-Williams, I have no complaints. And again, like I have stressed, the durability of this paint is out of this world. So if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. And then after allowing a full day to dry, I went ahead and listed it for sale. And here it is all finished. This piece is now one of a kind and ready to take on a new home. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more.